Hi, my name is Robbin Miller.
And you can just talk to me, trying to ignore the camera and everything else
Okay.
if possible. That's and just tell me right now, what is it that you do? What is your job?
Oh, I am a adjunct professor at a community college. I teach human services. I also have a small private practice here in the Central Mass area. And then I also work for a nonprofit agency.
Great.
Pretty busy. All three part-time professional jobs.
And
You know I dropped that behind. Yeah, that's better.
so, if you could tell me a little bit about your story, why I'm here, and I would say we'll just start with that, and then talk about maybe what I'm just giving you an overview, what your advocacy looks like, and where, and because a lot of arguments against bullying is that people don't understand that there's a point where it crosses a line, and that's kind of just the crux of what we've been talking about. So.
Well, thank you very much for letting me have this opportunity to tell my story. Mine happened in the summer of 2009. Prior to that, in about December 2007, I wanted to leave the mental health outpatient field because the pay hasn't been good, high turnover, among other things. The infrastructure is not very solid at this time in place to make a good living. So I went into a healthcare field, serving as a care manager for Alzheimer's clients and caregivers, because the potential for a higher income was much greater than it was in outpatient mental health, and productivity was easy because obviously you were serving clients who needed the service, as opposed to mental health. There's a high dropout, high turnover rate for clients. So I wanted to enter that field to make a decent living and a consistent living as well, besides making a difference.
Sure. So you were at this job for
About December 2007 to August 2009. I was doing well. I met my supervisor. I had like 3 different supervisors. They hired somebody January 2009. In May of 2009, we met at the park to do my evaluation. She said I was doing great. No problem, you're doing great. I'm very happy with you. Then suddenly, a turn of events just went downhill. In the middle of June, she called a meeting to meet with me separately and another colleague who was 20 years younger than me. We were both part-time care managers, and she had no experience. She was fresh out of school, had no experience working with elderly or Alzheimer clients, absolutely knew nothing. And so apparently she wanted to meet with both of us separately, because apparently she wanted to review some of the tasks that she wanted us to do correctly. Okay, I can deal with that. That's cool. So I met with her, and what I expected to just be, okay, this is how you can do your job better, it ended up being really like a boxing match. All she did was attack me, saying, I don't understand why you can't pay attention to my instructions. What's wrong with you? I want an explanation. And I said, well, I'm sorry that you felt that I wasn't doing my job right, but how can I do it better? And she goes, I want you to tell me why you can't do the job right. And I saw her veins popping out of her neck, her face turned red, and I saw the whites of her eyes. I never felt so much hatred in her body energy toward me. She demanded an explanation about why I couldn't follow her instructions. And I said to her, I don't think you're respecting me. I said, I don't think you're treating me nice. And she goes, you know something? You're disrespecting me. I'm going to tell my supervisor on you, and we're going to have a meeting. And then she goes, I want you to repeat the words after me. And I'm like, I'm not going to repeat the words after you about what you want me to do. I said, just tell me. No, you're going to repeat back my instructions. So she forced me to repeat back her instructions like I was a 3-year-old. So after that meeting, I was totally upset, warped, and I'm like, what just happened here? I felt like my face got beaten up with punches to the face. So I met with the younger worker who was 22 years younger than me. We met at Burger King, and I said, oh, how did your meeting go with the supervisor? She goes, I went great. She told me how to do my job better. She encouraged me. She supported me. She told me I could ask her for help for any time. But I said, she just wasn't she going to talk about the same two issues? Yeah. I said, wow. I said, I don't know what happened with me, but she just beat me up mentally. And I was shocked. And I said, something's going on here. Just something's not right. So we had to meet with her, and this happened before July 4th. So after July 4th, I had to meet with her and her supervisor. Well, guess what? Human resource shows up. And I'm like, what is going on here? So what is going on here? And I said, and the human resource person says, well, you're getting a written warning. I said, for what? Well, because you were disrespecting your supervisor. I said, wait a minute. Like I told my supervisor's boss before July 4th, because I called her, I said, she's disrespecting me. Can you do something about this? I want mediation. She goes, well, I'm more concerned that you're not following her directions. I'm like, wow. So I refused to sign the written warning. I said, I'm not signing this. I said, I'm sorry, I'm not signing this. So there was like 3 of them looking at me, and I'm like, what is going on here? So I had to meet with her again. And of course, I went off on her. I was like saying, this woman is not treating me right. She's mean to me. How could you let this go on? I was pleading with the human resource and our supervisor, you have to do something. Did nothing. It fell on deaf ears. So the whole month of July was just pure hell for me. After the July 4th, before she goes on vacation, she kept text messaging me at home every night to make sure I put the notes in of seeing my clients, and that my clients put their notes in, because I had to put their notes in every night when they took care of their loved one at home, the caregiver. She never did that before. And she would text me at 11 o'clock at night saying, you didn't check the text, you didn't check the client messages, the caregiver messages. I'm like, the night's not over with. It's 11 o'clock. Because some caregivers didn't do their note taking until the next day. They're busy. So every day she would kept texting me, make sure you check their notes, make sure you check their notes. And then a week later, I was forced to see a caregiver who was Asian. He couldn't speak English to me. I said, I cannot see this caregiver to find out how things are going on because he can't speak the language. How do you want me to see him? Well, you have to see him. But he doesn't speak English. You got to see him. So obviously they were desperate for Medicaid billing. To me, that's Medicaid fraud. But, Medicaid, you just don't fraudulently bill to see a client where you just sit there and look at each other. You got to converse and talk. So I would go to this client's house, the caregiver's house, see the client. I couldn't understand a word he was saying. And then she told me to teach him how to put notes in the computer. I'm like, okay. So I did that. So what happened was she goes on vacation. She comes back, and I get a call at home the last week of July. And it says, at that time, Verizon had it where somebody wants to talk to you on the phone when you accept the call. I'm like, okay, who's calling me at my home? It was my client. I'm like, why is my client calling me? She has my work number. She goes, I'm letting you know I want to change the appointment. Okay, so I'm like saying, wait a minute, how did this client get my personal home phone number? I went to see her 2 days later, and I go in, the house is dark, there's no windows open, and I felt really weird. And I said, is it open? And it was hot in July. I said, look, I have allergies. Is it okay if we just open the window? She goes, okay. I said, well, I have to write my notes down. Is it okay if you just put the lights on? She goes, okay. So we're talking. And then I asked her at the end of the session, I said, well, how did you get my home phone number? I thought you had my work phone number because I know you've called me before. So she takes out the card and she goes, oh, your supervisor gave me your home phone number. Oh, okay. I said, well, I'd rather if you just call me at my work number because my husband has a business at home. I thought everything was okay. No. A week later, she comes back. She gives the client to my other colleague. And then, and that was it. And then we have a meeting in August, a follow-up. And then the human resource person comes back. And I'm like, uh-oh, what's going on here? And she says, well, don't you know what you just did? I said, what did I do? Didn't you hear? I said, did what? You had no right to harass that client. I said, what? This is 2 weeks later. I said, what are you talking about? Well, she called up saying that you were tormenting her. I said, tormenting her? I said, all I asked her was to open the window because it was hot, put the light on so I could write, and I just asked her nicely to please just call me on my work phone. Well, that wasn't nice of you, and this is your last day of work. You're terminated. I'm like, wait a minute. I said to Human Resource and her boss, I said, you never called me about this. And I wanted to say in front of them that she set me up. She did set me up. She purposely set me up to have this happen. No supervisor in their right mind would give out an employee's home phone number. She did it on purpose, and they didn't care. So they said, look, we're going to give you unemployment. I said, what, you're firing me? Well, it just wasn't a good fit. Oh, I said to myself, they're trying to keep my mouth shut. I get that. So I left. And let me tell you, it was feeling awful because it was an income potential. So I had to go back to work in the outpatient mental health. And then I had a loss of income. And then by a luck of faith, that's when I got the call to adopt my son. Talk about coincidence. It was the most happiest time, but also the saddest time in my life because expenses have just skyrocketed when you have a child. So we had to go out to get him, healthy baby, the pride of our life, major joy. But at the same time, we've had a lot of expenses taking care of him. I had to go buy supplies. I was collecting unemployment, partial. I was working half-time. I was trying to get a full-time job. I filed the complaint with the Mass Commission Against Discrimination for Aging, and they just screwed it up big time. Took them 2 years to respond. What they said was they interviewed, I had a witness who was going to say that, yes, the boss was mean to me. Well, she turned it around, and I guess she got threatened on the job and said that I didn't do a good job and I was mean. I was like, she never told me this. She lied. She's a lying witness. So the investigator wrote that even though I wrote that I was standing up for myself, I was being assertive, I was speaking up for myself. So the investigator writes, even though I had a right to stand up for myself, speak up for myself, and be assertive, they felt the way the supervisor treated me was justified. I'm like, something, if I was of a different demographic, I really, really believe that they wouldn't have said that. So that's why I'm supporting the workplace bullying, House Bill 1771, because it's not in regard to protective class. I understand the pros and cons of it. I'm aware of that. It really, something has to change because ironically, when I went back into mental health, I was finding a lot of my client cases, they were being bullied. Older workers over the age of 50. I found a couple of cases where their employer was telling them either to quit and they'll keep quiet about it, or they were just making fun of them because they were older workers. So I knew I wasn't the only one. And I said, this should not be allowed. We need something in place to just, you can't just tell employees to be nice. You have to have something in place that says, there's harassment going on, about it, like they have in the school system for bullying, where if they know about it, the school is liable, they could be sued about it, they have to do something, write an incident, blah, 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 blah. And it should be done in that format. You know about it, the employer knows about it, you need to address it, deal with it in a positive way, do preventive education like they do in the school district, have a process for dealing with bullying incidents. I do know they have to see a mental health counselor or somebody to justify, because I did suffer from minor depression and I was seeing somebody at the time where I was just beside myself. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I was agitated. And it was so hard for me to not stand up to that lady. She really took blows to my face, figuratively speaking. It was really hot shots to the face. And let me tell you, the day that they fired me and I was out the door, she was smiling. So she calls up my colleague and gave her my hours. And to this day, 7 years later, she's now in a higher position in the company. So I hope they do pass it, and there are safeguards in place to prevent litigious litigious cases. Mm-hmm. So, thank you.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to just talk a little bit more. I have to somewhat play devil's advocate here because that's what gets tossed in my face. But a lot of times people will say to me, "So what do you think was the motive?" And I know that you talked about this a little bit, but could you talk about why do you think you were, and one, what do you think the motive was, and two, do you think you were specifically targeted?
Well, I think what it was is that we had the worker who was 22 years younger than me, was working part-time, and I know she wanted to work full-time. And they knew I knew my stuff. I knew the lay of the land. I'd been in it for 20 years, and she didn't. And the supervisor liked her because it was the way that she could mold and shape her. I knew the lay of the land, and I think that she liked the younger worker than me because she could shape and mold her. And she was so worried that she was gonna leave because she was younger than me. I mean, there's a lot of age discrimination out there. So, she just concocted. I mean, how could you go from doing great on your evaluation to all of a sudden you have a litany of complaints here and there, texting me every night and making up these stories? I mean, come on. It just didn't happen out of the blue. So something wasn't right. Just something was not right at all.
And people frequently talk about crossing the line between what's just a tough management style and what's bullying. Where do you think this manager crossed the line?
Mobbing, getting other people against me because they didn't listen to me. Human resource didn't listen to me. Oh, boss, she was more worried about me following her directions. I'm like, wait a minute, the lady is demanding I repeat back her instructions. She's texting me every night. She's talking down to me. She's telling me I'm disrespecting her because I asked her to please be nicer to me. I said, I don't like the way you treated me. Come on. Something wasn't right. I said, no. Just that she crossed the line. She was going to make my life a living hell so I can leave. But I knew that in order to collect unemployment, you can't quit. So I just went along documenting. I documented everything. I didn't know what was out there. There was nobody to turn to. I didn't even know about an advocacy group out there. We need to have something in place that management has to be held liable for. If they are held liable for protective class, they need to be held liable for everybody else. And it's just, we're not in the bully yard. We're not in the schoolyard anymore. If we have school bullying, we need to have it for adults because school bullies become adult bullies.
Do you think this was, part of the culture of where you were working? Was this something that came down from the top?
I have no idea because she was never like that before. I think they were all pressured, the managers, to get their numbers up for cases and also to get the Medicaid billing because that funded the agency.
So they think it was motivated by pressure from the top to
get money, get more clients, do whatever. And also the woman was white, but she was bilingual, and to get money for Medicaid.
It seems that there are legislators in Massachusetts who, aren't supporting this bill or don't maybe fully understand it. What would you say to them?
Well, I think I don't want to be partisan, but I think they look at it as just more regulations in the workplace. Oh no, what's another thing we got to regulate? It doesn't cost any money. There's no money involved. It's just management has to just put in a system about the process for workplace bullying. There are some employers out there who already have it in place. Some who are aware of it and know about it because it happened to them or other people told them. There's some unions that do have it, but other people don't want it. They feel like, it's another thing that it's an unfunded mandate they now do, but they really don't. They just have to add another page to their human resource manual and have a process in place.
Right. And the could you go into a little more detail about how it made you feel and how this bullying impacted you, not just professionally but also personally?
Oh, it was awful. July of 2009, the summer. It was a time where I really wanted to enjoy the summer. It just knocked me out. I was depressed. I was agitated. I wasn't sleeping. I was angry, extremely angry. personally, after I lost my job, that was a loss of potential income. And then, my spouse over the last 6 years, I mean, now he has steady work, I have steady work. Prior to that, we have the birth of a child, and you got to take care of your child. We work for our paychecks. And, we just had one financial challenge after another. We had, flooding damage. My dog needed surgery. Obviously, my son had his, we had daycare. And then my husband was in and out of jobs, so he did get steady employment, and he's fine now. It's just that it really hurt me financially. It ruined my credit. You try to work something out with these people, it just doesn't work. It was so humiliating for me. My credit is ruined, and my bank account has dwindled. So, thankfully now I'm working 3 jobs. Again, and I'm able to get up top. My husband has steady employment. We're getting back to our feet. This is 7 years later. It was just economically devastating.
And on a professional level, had anyone ever treated you that way in a professional environment before? Have you ever, been talked to that way, or had this ever happened to you before?
I know, in a job and probably 7 years, but I had a boss who wasn't nice. So I quit, I told management about it, but the problem was she was somebody with a physical disability and I'm able-bodied, so I knew it wouldn't go anywhere. Reverse discrimination just doesn't exist. It was so obvious. But, I left with my head up high and I went on. And then unfortunately she died, so, well.
But that doesn't sound like it was the same level.
No. I mean, now that I'm an older worker, I will speak up. I mean, I fight my battles and I know what my rights are. As a professional mental health clinician, you work in an agency, supervisors, directors, if they're licensed, they have ethics, morality, and we have rules for licensure professionals about how to behave in the workplace. So, yeah, I will speak up. And I will, let it be known that I don't want to be pushed around.
It seems that the mental health community is somewhat behind the curve on workplace bullying. Do you have any experience with that?
I know it happens, and nobody talks about it. I mean, now, with productivity, I've seen over the years about people who were salaried that they lose their salary if they don't make their productivity. I mean, they just take their money away and say you're working fee for service. We have high turnover of clients, insurance rates are low, and agencies want to survive, so sometimes they'll push their clinicians, including myself, to see more people. Well, I'm ethical, I don't see anybody, but there's some mental health professionals today that will see clients and they're not qualified to see them. They just want to get their productivity and get their paycheck. So that's why there's a mental health crisis in Massachusetts. Nobody's doing anything.
Anything you want to ask or add? Anything that comes to mind?
I don't think so.
Okay.
How long had you been at that particular job?
I was there for about a year and a half. Yeah, about 18 months.
And it was a new supervisor?
Yes, the fourth one.
So in that time you had 4 supervisors?
Yeah, I never had a problem with the other 3.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, just this one.
Well, the stage is yours. So what would you like to say? I think we covered just about everything.
I think we covered about everything. I think that it may sound like common sense to an employer to handle it, but employers, especially the big employers, they have so many regulations to do, so many mandates, and having another regulation, probably a mandate, they just say, I don't want to deal with this. Can't people just handle it themselves? But it's very common. It's not today that workplace bullying is common. It's always been going on for, who knows, hundreds of years, who knows. It's just now that protective status is protected by the state government. Some managers are picking on non-protective class members because they know they can get away with it. And the workplace today, a lot of overworked people are stressed, and management needs to take this seriously to train employees to work things out, mediation, got to work together. And yes, they may use work performance to say, I'm upset because you're not doing X, Y, and Z. But you know something, even though somebody may have a work performance issue, it doesn't give the employee, fellow employee, or a supervisor the right to verbally abuse you. It's like saying that of a domestic violence. The wife or man upset the partner and the partner smacked them. And they say, well, the court will say, well, you agitate your husband or whatever, but it doesn't give them the right to smack you. So that's basically what the bottom line is. You handle work performance issues in a diplomatic way, depending on the worker, but you don't verbally abuse them. And that's what people don't get. Nobody has a right to be yelled at or verbally abused on the job. Hopefully not physical. So I think people miss the boat on that.
Right, because it's not like you choose to be there, you have to work.
I'm working, I got to pay my bills, I got to work for my paycheck. You know, like the Mass Commission Against Discrimination, they said even though they supported me sticking up for myself and standing up myself diplomatically, they felt that she still had a right to treat me that way. And I had a whole thing of how she was abusing me. I was like, wait a minute. You're only saying that because I'm not a protective class. And if I was, you wouldn't be saying that. No, I was so disgusted. It was a sloppy, bad investigation, how they did it. Sloppy.
Yeah, it sounds, and how can you, you know, it's difficult because it puts you in a position of having to ask people who are still employed to stand up for you, and they can easily be motivated to do what
Mm-hmm.
the company may want them to say rather than
Mm-hmm.
you know, be completely earnest.
Yeah, retaliation is a real thing.
Retaliation, and it was retaliation against me because I reported it. I immediately did what I was supposed to do. But, they never said she was wrong. You know, she was the troublemaker, and to this day, I don't want anything to do with her. I just ignore her.
Yeah.
You know, look, I have to raise a family. You know, I'm married. I want to keep that.
Right.
Just ignore her. Well, hopefully I made a difference.
No, this is fabulous. This
Mm-hmm.
is great because it's, you know, this is a subtle. This can be bullying can be subtle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not always the overt crazy boss who's you know, ripping up the office. Sometimes it's somebody who verbally abuses
Mm-hmm.
you know, pesters you, torments you with texts or phone
Mm-hmm.
calls at all hours of the day and night.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like the situation that you were in.
Oh, yeah. Well, at that time, they weren't able to trace it. Now you can trace every text and email and phone call that you can get. But, you know, what boggles me, the company never said she was wrong for giving out my home phone number.
Right, which that has to be against some.
They didn't care. They said, well, she had to get in touch with you. Yeah, but I had a phone from the job. All you had to do was give them the number. But I knew the supervisor set me up. You know. Oh, yeah. She said, I figured it out right away. You know, you go to a client's house, you know, the windows are shut, the lights are out. I'm like, oh, what's going on here? You know. So, yeah. But thank you very much.
Thank you. No, that was fabulous. I know this is not always easy to talk about or to have to, you know, I don't know about you, but certainly for myself, it can sometimes just thinking about a past bullying experience, it can just make my blood boil all over again. And I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Oh, I'm just trying to make a difference because you got to grow from it. You know, it was hard financially since 2009, but you know, we made it. My son's well taken care of.
That's great.
You know, but I know other people don't have that opportunity because it could be a real loss to them, and they don't know the positive ways to move forward.
And some people are left so devastated by what happened to them that they're not even able to work anymore.
No, they don't because they're not. Well, if you're an older worker, it's so hard. It is. It's just and also, you know, you try to work with your creditors. They don't care. They really don't care. They'll say file bankruptcy, or they'll sell your credit card to one of those places to go after. They don't care, But hopefully we'll make a difference.